Well, my friends, this is Anna. Like a lot of teenagers, Anna was looking forward to the end of high school almost as soon as it began. She enjoyed school, but there's just something about getting together with a big crowd of your friends and family and classmates and celebrating your big achievement that really resonates with people. But like a lot of seniors, Anna had the rug pulled out from under her. But unlike this year's class, it wasn't COVID that got in her way. It was a gymnastics accident. Anna was the class of 2019, and shortly after she started her freshman year, she was in a terrible gymnastics accident. She severed her spinal cord and she was paralyzed from the neck down. The doctors told her that she'd never be able to walk again. But Anna was a gymnast and an optimist. She was used to pushing her body. She had a great support network, and most importantly of all, she was tough and she was tenacious. And so when it came time for her to graduate, she had a surprise prepared for everybody. In front of everybody, she was able to stand up and take her first unassisted steps since the accident across that stage. Now, those stories, they resonate with us. They speak to something really deep about what it means to be a human being. We see those stories in any field of human endeavor. Three of the greatest basketball players of all time right there, Kobe Bryant, Larry Bird, Michael Jordan. Very physically gifted people, but in a league full of physically gifted people, what set them apart was their drive, was their determination, was this attitude that they would never, 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 never give up. They do what it took to succeed. That's an important skill for everybody to internalize. You can make a case that that attitude saved the free world. After all, that quote is adapted from Winston Churchill, who used that same tenacity, that same attitude to inspire Britain to its finest hour. Now, your students are almost certainly not going to be saving the world, but they are always going to need perseverance. Whether it's standing up for what they believe in or just sticking with it through a difficult homework assignment or a difficult time in their educational careers, one thing that we've all got to get is grit. And that is our topic today. How can we develop grit so students can thrive in a topsy-turvy world, no matter what the world throws at them? Now, before we begin, just like to take care of a couple of housekeeping issues. First of all, there will be recordings available, be sent out in an email after this. And since it is all free, we strongly encourage you to share that out. So make a list of some people who might like to hear a little bit of information about how to build grit in their students. And please feel free to share that out. You can also share out our resources document. Feel free to jot down any great ideas as they come to you throughout our time together today. But do know that we're going to send you all of the strategies, all of the resources that we discuss. Those are also going to be in that email. So we've got a recording, we've got resources, and we've got Robin. If we do have any technical issues, if you have any problems behind the scene, you can please feel free to send her a message and she will be happy to help you out. Robin, would you like to say hi to everybody a moment?
Hi, everybody. Thanks for being here today.
So you have met me, you have met Robin, and it's time for us to get to know you just a little bit. I am curious, who is here? What grade of students do you teach? If you could fill that information in, and while you do, I'd like to point out that today's webinar is brought to us by Blue Apple. They're our sponsors today. I cannot recommend these projects highly enough. They help you integrate content into really rich projects that empower your students to change the world, to make a difference. A lot of what we talk about today is really well integrated into these projects. So please, as soon as we're done, head on over to blueappleteacher.org and to check those projects out. Robin, I hope that people had an opportunity to fill out that poll. Could you close that out and share it with us? Let us know who we're working with this afternoon.
Sure thing. So we are at 51% third through fifth grade teachers, and then followed by admin or other, and K2 right around 20%, and then 16% 9-12 and 12% 6-8.
Outstanding. And these strategies that we use today, they're going to be applicable for any student, any grade. Very, very diverse, useful strategies, no matter who you're working with. So here's how we're going to tackle this topic today. First of all, we're going to talk about why grit matters, because if we understand the why really deeply, it'll help us understand the what and the how more deeply as well. Then we're going to explore what grit really is, what the research says about how to build, or about what perseverance consists of. And then the meat of our time is going to be spent in this section about how to grow grit. Here we're going to give you practical strategies, stuff you can try tomorrow to help your students become better perseverers. So let's get started. When I think about why grit matters, I think about the professional development sessions that we do with teachers. We always start with the end in mind. We think about the ideal student, the person we're trying to cultivate, the citizen we're trying to help develop. Now that looks a little bit different in 2020. And one thing that we've discovered is that those differences highlight something really important. See, we always ask teachers to identify the characteristics of an ideal student. And you can see a couple of those fit right in with this concept of grit. These ideas about adaptability and resilience. But when we look at that in terms of its relevance for this year, when we think about how important those skills are this year, that word cloud shifts a little bit in teachers' minds. Those ideas of resilience and adaptability become more, things that we're more cognizant of. Whenever we run into difficulty, whenever we run into trouble, we recognize how important grit really is. Now, this year is not going to go on forever. We're going to move into a post-pandemic future. Things are going to get back to something resembling normal. But I promise you, no matter what, your students are always going to have trouble. They're always going to run into tough times. And this year, well, if 2020 has taught us anything, it's that we need to be ready for anything. If we can develop that grit, that perseverance in our students, then we can help them prepare for times like this, times when they need to dig deep. So grit matters because students will always run into situations in life where they need to persevere, where their success is determined by their grit. Now, if we want to build grit, we need to think carefully about what it is. And when we think about what grit is, well, I want to start about thinking about what it ain't. Grit ain't something that you can shout into people. It's not something that you can push from the top down, because you are not always going to be there to ensure compliance from your students. If all you're doing is forcing your students to persist, you're not building persistence, you're building compliance. And when they step out that door into the broader world, there's not going to be a you there to force that persistence on them. So if grit ain't, if it ain't not something that can be delivered from top down, then it is something that we need to build from the ground up. It's a set of characteristics and beliefs that we can nurture in our students. Grit must be grown. Now, fortunately, there's been a lot of research into how to build grit. I'm going to pull a lot from the work of Angela Duckworth today. She literally wrote the book on grit. It's called Grit. And one thing that she discovered is that all perseverance builds from passion. So when we think about building grit in schools, we're going to think about three different kinds of passion. Passion to learn, passion for self, passion for yourself as a persistent person, as a persistent problem solver, and passion for something that's bigger than yourself. When we build those types of passion, we lay the foundation for persistence. One big idea that we're going to tie throughout the entire time together today is that persistence is passion fruit. Grit is passion fruit. That's a picture of passion fruit right there, just to help you remember. Persistence is the fruit of passion. So if passion is so important to building grit, then how in the world can we do it? How can we grow grit? Well, let's look at those three different types of passion: passion to learn, passion for self, and passion for a purpose that's bigger than yourself. And think about specific things you can do in class to try to develop those passions. So think back to those great basketball players, or to a concert pianist, anybody who's really pushing themselves to be excellent. Those people spend hours and hours working after everyone else has gone home. And you know why they do it? They do it because they love their craft. These basketball players have a deep and abiding love for the game. And so if we want our students to be persistent learners, we have to build a passion to learn. Here's a great strategy that you can use to help your students become more passionate learners. It's called start with the end. One of the keys to loving learning is to love the thrill of discovery. And so instead of telling students how to do something, well, think about a task that you want them to be able to do at the end of the lesson and give that task to them at the beginning. And then let them figure it out for themselves. Let them discuss and debate. Let them connect, collaborate, and construct their understandings. Let them put their ideas to the test. Let them fail and learn from their mistakes. That process is exciting. When I'm in a class where that is happening, there's a buzz in the air. And so when we give our students an opportunity to discover the thrill of discovery, we cultivate that passion to learn. So one great strategy to try with your students is to start with the end. Another awesome one is impossible is nothing, because another key to the love of learning is deep understanding. Here's how this strategy works. You give students a task which is logically or mathematically impossible, and then you challenge them to do it anyway. When students have to run up against the bounds of impossibility, they really learn to understand that concept more deeply. When they understand that concept more deeply, they can love their learning more thoroughly. It also gives you a great forum to praise persistence. When students continue to push and to push, even though they're not going to get the answer because it's impossible, you have an opportunity to praise their persistence. You can say, you know what? You didn't get it, but I know that you are going to be a success because you have got grit, kid. That's an important message to drive home, and this gives you a great opportunity to do it. Here's some examples. You can challenge students to build a two-sided polygon on a flat sheet of paper. It can be done. But as they experiment and explore, they understand polygons more deeply. They understand geometry more deeply. And you've got a great chance to praise persistence. It's not just math. You can do this in language arts. Challenge them to write a complete sentence that doesn't have a subject. A great challenge that lets them explore the concept deeply. Or in science, to build a perpetual motion machine. The key here is to give them the opportunity to work and to work so that you can praise the work that they've put in. Another really great strategy for building a passion to learn is Genius Hour. I love Genius Hour, where some time is set aside each week for students to pursue one of their passions and to turn it into a deep project. I love that because it helps us take that next step. Passion is the foundation of persistence, but it's not persistence itself. If we want to get to persistence, we've got to learn to harness, to shape, to mold that passion. Here's how it works with Genius Hour. If you want to have a really successful Genius Hour, start with that passion, sure, but then have them put together a formal proposal, something that allows them to shape their passion in a productive pursuit. Then let them pursue it. Challenge them to really put in some diligent work. This is something they care about, after all. So you can really push them. Don't be afraid to tell them, you know what, it's not good enough yet. Here's how we might be able to improve it, so that they have the opportunity to iterate and to really push themselves to do their best, and then present it to an authentic audience. When they've got that audience in mind, it really helps them to up the ante as far as their effort. So by following those 4 Ps, passion, they turn into a proposal that they pursue and then present, you help them to harness their passion in a productive way. Genius Hour, great strategy that you can try. And the last strategy to help develop a passion to learn is to give them homework that they love. Instead of giving students narrow kind of close-ended assignments where they're just consolidating skills and practicing at home, give them open-ended tasks where they can slot their own interests and their passions in. For example, challenge them to invent something completely new, to go outdoors and discover something, to learn something new that they can share with you and with the class, to create something artistic, or one of my favorites, to perform an act of kindness. With those open-ended homework assignments, you give them the freedom and the autonomy to pursue things that interest them. Another great technique to use here is just to give them some choice. Allow them to choose from different open-ended tasks. When you give students that kind of autonomy, you open up the space that they need in order to really pick their passions and pull them in. So when you follow strategies like that, you help cultivate the passion to learn, the love of learning. You drive home that idea that learning is something that matters, that has value to these students, and that is what they're going to fall back on when things get tough. I'm curious, what do you think of those strategies? Robin, could you launch that poll? Which of those strategies are you excited to use in your class? You can pick more than one. Start with the end, letting them construct their knowledge. Impossible is nothing, where they have to push and prod at the bounds of impossibility. Genius Hour, where they can structure their passion into a productive proposal that they present. Or homework they love, those open-ended challenges. Give you about maybe 5 more seconds to make your picks and then submit them. And then Robin, in about 3 more seconds, can you close that poll out and tell us what we see?
Sure thing. All right, so it looks like everybody is going to use some of these, so that's awesome. But coming in at the top at 54%, we have Genius Hour, 49% homework they love, 37% start with the end, and then 31% impossible is nothing.
All right, at least 30% for each of those. Great. I'm glad that you find value in those. Try them out in your class. Try a couple of them out in your class. If something doesn't work for you, feel free to discard it. But if it works, well, my goodness, that you've got a new tool in your toolkit that maybe you didn't have before we started our time together today. That's exciting. Now, let's explore, again, some specific strategies that you can use to cultivate passion for self, that you can help students believe in themselves with. If we want to cultivate that attitude, that bulldog mentality, that drive, that persistence, the best way to start it is with hope. Because despair is a really gritless emotion. Persistence is all about not giving up. And if people are not going to give up, they've got to have something to hope for. And so we can be intentional about the way that we cultivate that hope in our students. Think about Mr. Rogers. When he welcomed children every day to be his neighbor, he created this safe space for them. He made them feel welcome. He gave them the confidence to do things like take risks. A simple song like that established the tone. You can use a song in your class to help students feel safe, to feel secure, to know that they're in a place where they can take chances. A gratitude journal is another great way to help students develop that optimistic mentality that's so necessary for persistence. for grit. When they write down the things that they're thankful for, the things that they aspire to, well, they keep that hope in the forefront of their minds. And that hope is what drives people when the going gets tough. No matter what you do with your rituals of hope in your classroom, students are going to see the tunnels. They're going to be aware of the challenges. Your job is to help them to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Now, that hopeful attitude is a great first step to developing that sort of passion for self. But we also have to help students believe in themselves, to have confidence that they're in control of their success. And we can do that by shaping the way that we have conversations in our classrooms. We're going to try this. We ran into some technical difficulties today, but we're persisting. We're going to try and see this video of a young child being given a math task. And in this first video, her father is going to praise her ability. So we're going to try to see Reese count backward from 10.
Okay, Reese, can you count backwards from 10 for me?
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You got them all right, 100% correct. I always knew you were a little mathematician. Now you need to go to your kindergarten teacher and show you how smart you are in math.
I hope you were able to hear that. If you didn't, he praised her for her ability. He said, "You're such a little smart, you got 100% correct." That feels like it sends a great message, but the message that it ends up sending to kids is that your ability is what determines how successful you are. And so if they can't do something, if they run into struggles, they feel, oh, I'm just not able. It's not something under their control. It's something they're either born with or not. So we don't want to just praise ability. We want to move beyond that. We want to praise effort. So we're going to try and play praise effort.
Okay, Reese, can you count backwards from 10?
Just listen to Reese.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Wow, Reese, you've obviously been practicing your numbers because you've improved so much. You're going to learn so much more in math this year in kindergarten if you keep working so hard at it.
Wow, you've really worked so hard. You're going to continue to improve if you continue to work. When we have that mentality, then we empower students because they feel like success is something under their control. Angela Duckworth says that people don't give up when they encounter difficulty. They give up when they encounter difficulty that they can do nothing about. So when we change the conversation, we make students realize that they're in control of their success. Another great way to change the conversation is just to be on the lookout for your students' passions and to praise when they practice those passions. And it's been around for a long time, but still a great strategy. Always be a Yeti. What that means is if students say they can't do something, they always have to finish it with yet. I can't multiply two-digit numbers yet. I haven't finished my biography yet. Encourage them to view the world as something that they're still growing into. Great ways to change the conversation. You've got to instill that belief. And last strategy for passion for self is mistake of the day. We need to get excited about error because all learning starts with mistakes, with confusion. So when we see mistakes, we don't need to say that's okay. We need to say that's awesome because it gives us an opportunity to learn. This mistake right here, I saw all the time in second grade, and I loved it because it let us explore the idea of regrouping. Don't just collect mistakes for the day. Look at all the ones you've made that week and then share the best mistake of the week with the world. Mistake of the day or mistake of the week is a great way to help your students recognize that they've got to fail forward. When they fail, it's an opportunity for them to learn. So, Robin, can we open that next poll up? Which of those strategies are you excited to use? Rituals of hope, change the conversation, or mistake of the day / mistake of the week? Again, you can pick more than one if you're curious about trying more than one. All right, Robin, what did people find useful?
All right, so they are all going to be useful, but 76% said change the conversation. 59% picked mistake of the day or week, and then 35% for rituals of hope.
Again, over 30% for every single one. That is awesome to see. I'm glad that you're finding those useful. Let's share some last strategies for building that passion for purpose. I think it's important to remember that when Anna accomplished walking across the stage, she didn't just do it for herself. She did it in part because of those people who had supported her, those people who had loved her. She kept those people in mind as she persevered. And if we can help our students to have a passion for something bigger than themselves, we give them the deepest form of persistence. One great way to do that is to remind students on a regular basis that their education matters, because they're going to grow up and take over the world someday. They are going to be the decision makers who shape their communities and the broader society. And we want them to do a better job than we did. And so their learning matters. For some of them, that's going to entail going to college. So I always remind students that I want them to be able to make that choice, to empower them to do anything they want to do in their lives. Put college pennants all around the classroom to remind students that they're going somewhere. It doesn't have to be college, though. There's all sorts of great careers. We want students to be thinking about what they're going to do with their learning someday, to use their gifts and to make the world a better place. Which brings me to the second strategy, which is real world connections. If you can bring people from the broader world into your class to talk about how they're using things like reading and writing and math and science, well, you can help students see the value in what they're doing and to think about how they're going to use their learning in the future. As you do that, make sure that you show women and minorities in fields where they've historically been underrepresented, so that students know that no matter who they are, the world is ready for their gifts. The world is excited to receive the benefit of the talents that they have. But learning is not just so we can accomplish good in the future. One of my favorite strategies is to help students see that their learning can do good right now with purpose-filled project-based learning. I mentioned Blue Apple projects earlier. I've worked with some Blue Apple teachers who taught their students economics and then used their understanding to conduct a fundraiser to help an entrepreneur on the other side of the world. So those students, when they go to bed at night, they know that because of what they did, there's a community that's thriving all the way across the ocean. That's a wonderful realization for students to have. I've worked with Blue Apple teachers who have helped their students make a connection with senior citizens, to learn about their lives and to create a memento, a keepsake biography. Now, they learned language arts, they learned history, but more importantly, they learned the power that they have to make the world a better place. It's an incredibly rich and rewarding experience. So if you want the deepest form of persistence, it's important for you to help students see themselves as part of a community of people who are working to make the world a better place. So those three strategies: reminding students that they're getting ready to take over the world. Robin, you can launch this poll, thank you. Bringing in real world connections and participating in purpose-filled PBL. Which ones are you excited to try yourself? As you take that poll, I'd just like to tell you that my hope for our time today is that you found something of value. There's something that you can take back into your classroom, because I really believe in the power of teachers and the power of education. What you do tomorrow with your students matters. Your students are in a difficult position, they're in a difficult situation right now. And if you can breathe some grit into them, some persistence and some perseverance, well, that's going to change their lives. And their lives are going to change the lives of others. Robin, could you reveal the answers? What do people find valuable?
Absolutely. So at 79% is real world connections. And then 44% is purpose-filled PBL, followed by 33% of take over the world.
Outstanding. And so my hope again is that you found something valuable today, because I do believe in the power of education. I truly believe, in my heart of hearts, that education has the power to change the world. And there's nothing I enjoy more than connecting with teachers. So if you liked what you heard today, and you'd like to bring me or bring the rest of my team in to work with your school, one of the beautiful things about our approach is that it's flexible. We'll work on the content that you're interested in, according to your schedule, and even in the way you prefer to learn, in person or virtual. So if you liked this, please feel free to share it with your administrator or to go to Blue Apple Teacher and check out the PD section. I would love to connect more deeply and to interact about any topic that you're really interested in. Also remind you to sign up for our next free webinar coming up. You can go to vai.org and check it out. We're going to think about lesson planning, saving time with your lesson plans in this crazy world that we live in. And I'd like to give you a chance to win one of those Blue Apple projects. I would love to hear some homemade recipes, some things that you do with your students to cultivate passion or persistence. So if you email me, ben.talsma@vaei.org, I'm going to pick one person who shares something they're doing in their classroom and give them a free Blue Apple project. Again, in the meantime, I strongly encourage you to go check those out, blueappleteacher.org. Great resources that you can use to make your classroom a richer and more powerful place. And last, thank you so much for your time today. I hope that we were able to give you something of value, and I really would love for you to stay in touch. Thank you for everything that you do.